Restaurants are very abundant and popular in today's society. I've been to a restaurant, you've been to a restaurant, and even your grandmother has been to a restaurant. Now, I say this so we are all on the same page when I say that restaurants are integral to culture. And what I mean when I say restaurants are integral is that society relies on restaurants. Many people, many families solely eat in restaurants and seldom eat or cook for themselves. I know many families that haven't cooked for themselves in over a year at least, if not more. And I have patrons that have eaten in the restaurant every day since I've worked there. They've been there many more hours than I will probably ever be. Now, I say this because I've worked in a restaurant for 4 years and I've seen all the types of people and almost anything there is to see in a restaurant throughout this time. But I've noticed there's one big thing that should change, and it's that the workers aren't paid in a fair and equal manner. You see, the cooks are paid by hour per wage. They are paid for each hour they are there, and that's simply it. That is how they are paid. Now, our servers are paid on the kindness of strangers, tipped, if you will. They are paid a hourly minimum of $2.13. Now, this minimum typically goes straight to the taxes, and they see not much, if any, of it. And I think that should change. I propose that we enforce a 20% gratuity onto all tables. That way, the servers are paid in a fair and equal manner. To fully understand what it means to be a server, we're going to look at some numbers. And for those numbers, we look towards the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics states that the service industry, which includes our servers, makes up 81% of all employees. Now, that's a very hefty number, especially when compared to the other numbers of good production, which makes up a mere 13%. But the number continues to dwindle when we get to things like agriculture, which is a measly 1, or the 5% of people who are self-employed, non-agricultural workers. Now, these will be people who have their own self-made business or are entrepreneurs by name. Your agriculture are your farmers, which we will typically imagine with the name agriculture. And the goods production are the factory workers and anyone who produces a good to be sold. But it is unfair to compare the 81% to the rest, as not all service workers are servers. In fact, to look closer, 8% of all employees in America are servers. Now, I think that number is quite important, as 8% of all employees are paid off the kindness of strangers. Unlike any other job, they have to rely on the kindness rather than a per hour agreed upon wage. They could work for nothing. Now, I know everything I've said so far makes it seem like serving is a terrible job, but I argue the opposite, as the average tip is around 20% of the sales, so we would actually not see much of a change if we were to enforce this. But what we would be able to see is that people would no longer have the ability to exempt themselves from tipping. And I think that's the biggest issue we see nowadays, as some tables think that they are above the status quo, that they can do whatever they believe is true. Now, the issue I see with this is it puts the servers' welfare in jeopardy. And what I mean by this welfare jeopardy is that they could make nothing for the work that they have done. And I think it should all be fair and equal. But there is one major counterpoint to this argument. It's that the servers would not know when they've done a bad job, or that they would just do a bad job since they're guaranteed a certain percentage. But once again, I disagree. In any other job, What would you do if things did not go the way that they were supposed to, or you were unsatisfied with the product? You would complain. And this is a fairly universal thing. I do not understand why it is completely frowned upon in this society to do this in this business, this industry. But I think if everyone agreed to complain when something did not go their way, we would see a reform in our service industry, and it's that the servers would feel accountable for their actions, as they know any wrong action would make its way to management, thus they would be corrected. And this cycle, this tight cycle that we see with the complaints, leads to better workers, as they'll work harder, they feel more accountable for their actions, and the poor servers would be able to be dealt with more quickly. It's simple to understand that more better workers leads to less poor workers. And that's an important concept because in addition to the complaint and reform system we discussed, servers would work harder to up their ticket prices, meaning they would upsell items. And an upsell is when a server suggests an item akin to the one the customer is already asking about or ordering for one of higher quality. Now, what this would lead to is that the ticket prices would go up, the customer would receive a better quality product, and the management would be happier as both the customer and workers are doing better. If everyone in the situation benefits, I think it's fair to call that situation a win-win for both parties. Now, a win-win scenario for 8% of all workers in America, I think is a fair asking for such a small change in what we need to do. Most systems of restaurants could enforce this either manually by the servers doing it or have it happen automatically within a day by themselves. But for some reason, we insist that all servers rely on the kindness of strangers rather than the work that they provide. Thank you.